ladies and gentlemen, now hosting the RizzoCast. Put your hands together for Steven Risotto!
What's going on, everybody, and welcome. My name is Steven Risotto. I cover the San Francisco Giants for SFBay, and I'm the host of RizzoCast, a podcast that features current and former big league players, coaches, fans, media, and others who are regarded as some of the brightest minds in baseball. Today's guest is Caleb Baragar, a left-handed relief pitcher who pitched in 2 seasons at the big league level with the San Francisco Giants in 2020 and 2021. He was recently released by the Cleveland Guardians organization and is currently a free agent, but he is working his way back by training daily at Driveline Baseball in Arizona. We discussed the comeback trail, working at Driveline for the first time, pitching philosophy, fixing mechanical issues, choosing the JUCO route, robo umps, pitching for the Giants, debuting during a pandemic, starting versus relieving, playing for Gabe Kapler, so much more. Coming up next on RizzoCast, this is episode number 148. Let's get started. All right, and we are back with Caleb Baragar, and Caleb is nice enough to take some time and join the show. Caleb, how's it going? Welcome.
Good, Steven. Thanks for having me.
And Caleb, a lot of people kind of come up on my radar in different ways, and you're currently a free agent after being released by the Guardians just a few weeks ago. But that hasn't seemed to stop you. And I've seen the clips of you throwing, and usually those clips of guys throwing are the attention grabbers. So take me through kind of the process of working your way back to professional baseball and what the last 2 weeks have been, because I'm sure it's been a little bit of a roller coaster ride.
Yeah, for sure. I guess it kind of shocked me a little bit because I was hurt before. So then as soon as I got healthy, Cleveland was like, hey, we just don't have any roster space. We're going to grant you your release. Hopefully you can find another team to get to. So it was a little bit shocking. And then it was kind of like scramble mode. Like, what are we going to do? We got to figure out where we're going. So I sat down with my wife, like we talked, and we made our way back to Arizona. And I plan on going to Driveline anyway this offseason. So I was like, well, called my agent and I was like, hey, this is what I'm thinking. I have some extra time now. I might as well get in there and start training now, maybe get a jump up on the off season if nothing comes to fruition with another team. And in the meantime, it's good training. And also it's kind of like good exposure as well. If I can go in there and like tweak some stuff and kind of get right and get ready. So for now, I'm just hanging out here in Arizona, training every day and working with the people at Driveline. I threw my motion capture. That was the video you saw. So we were able to break down that data and kind of see where I'm lacking efficiency in my delivery. And it was nice for me too to kind of notice that a lot of my delivery was really solid. I felt like for the last 2 years, I've been kind of searching to get back to my 2020 comfortability with my mechanics. Like in 2020, I felt like everything flowed really well. I was moving really well and I didn't have to think too much. And over the last 2 years, I kind of went down like a rabbit hole of trying to figure out how to get back there and try to see like what was lacking. So I feel like I've been trying more stuff than I probably should have and tweaking some stuff that I shouldn't. So it was good for me to get there and then Driveline to be like, hey, like you do all of this really well. There's just this one little timing piece that we need to shore up, and that should make the adjustment to everything coming back easier and command coming back and everything else. So that's kind of where I'm at now, just training, trying to get right and making some good progress.
Yeah, and Driveline is kind of known for the transformative pitching performances and the products that they have. And you see guys go to Driveline and they gain like 3 miles an hour on their fastball or something like that, and it kind of brings out the most in guys. So what specifically about Driveline made it kind of an intriguing goal to go and train there? You mentioned that you're going to go this off season. What was it about Driveline? Was it kind of what you've heard about the league? Have you worked there before? What kind of separates Driveline from everything else?
So I'd never worked there before, but I feel like I've ran into quite a few coaches from there over the past few years, like Cody Buchel, who I had in Cleveland. He was a Driveline guy. And then Matt Daniels was actually I give him a lot of credit with San Francisco. He kind of put a lot of light to my stuff in 2019. And he was really the biggest contributor to my success in 2019 because he was our first analytics guy with San Francisco that kind of took a deep dive into what I had and He's one that figured out that I had a really high carry fastball, especially from like a low release height. So my vertical approach angle is really shallow, which basically means like the ball comes in like on a flat plane. So those two guys, and then I met another guy through training at another facility in Arizona, Simon Matthews, who's now I think like an assistant pitching coordinator with the Reds. He was also like a driveline coach. So I had gotten some feedback from those guys on like where a good spot would be to train and if driveline was really worth it. And everybody had glowing reviews. And obviously, you see this stuff from guys around the league, and you get to talk to some of the players after being with a couple different teams. I've like noticed there's quite a few guys that have gone there and had a lot of success. And so I really felt like this offseason was going to be a big time for me to kind of get back to being comfortable. And I really felt like Driveline was going to be the best place for me to do that, with having the mocap and the definitive data and being able to put together like a specific plan with a coach and kind of attack it that way. Like I felt that was the best place for me to go to really shore up the things that I need to shore up.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that technology that they have, because that's also something that they're known for. And I know that you use it a lot in organizations, and especially with the Giants, with the brass that they had, the Rapsodos, the Trackmans, whatever programs that they use. And I don't know if you like necessarily came up with that stuff, but did it take you a while to like figure out what all of that meant, figure out how to interpret the numbers and the angles and the different numbers that and data that those things kind of pump out? Because it seems like it would take some time to like figure out how to master that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I definitely didn't come up with it in the beginning. I don't remember. I think we got it starting in like 2019 with San Francisco, kind of when everything switched with Farhan and him bringing in all those guys. And then, like I said, Matt Daniels, he was like our, I don't even remember what his actual job title was, like pitch analysis strategist or something crazy like that. But yeah, definitely. Like I didn't really know what any of the things meant. They were like, "Oh, you have like really good vertical break on your fastball," and I was like, "Well, that's great. I don't even know what that means." Like I'd been taught my whole career with the Giants so far, from like 16 into 18, to like throw my fastball down in the bottom of the zone, try to get ground balls since I was a starter, and like that's kind of what they wanted. And I kept trying that and not having any success. And lo and behold, Matt's like, "Hey, like stop throwing your fastball down in the zone. Like that's where it's going to get hit. Like just the way your fastball plays, like you don't throw a sinker, or like throw your fastball at the top. Like you're going to get a lot of pop-ups and swing and misses." So that whole aspect was really eye-opening. And then honestly, I just over the last couple of years, like just getting to use it to different facilities in the off season, and then even during the season, like you just learn the more that you use it, like I guess I've been using it now for going on 4 years. So it takes some time, but I feel like I have a pretty good grasp on it now, which is really helpful because now I can kind of design some like pitch shapes and kind of play with some different stuff and really get some instant feedback on like, hey, is this a good pitch for me, or is this not a good pitch for me? And then what happens when I manipulate a seam this way on my slider? Like I can like take away some vert from my slider, or if I want it to kind of turn into a cutter, I can do that as well. So it's really good to get that instant feedback from that technology. It's really a game changer.
Yeah, I'd be a fish out of water looking at like extension and pitch shapes. Like it would just be a mess for me. And we hear players like talk about like the grind of playing every day, right? And um, it's probably even more so grind in the minor leagues. And was it strange for you? Because we know it's one thing for a player to have like an expiring contract and become a free agent. But was it strange kind of like showing up to the ballpark every day in Columbus to now not, and it's not the middle of the year, but it's in the middle of the season. Is that different from anything that you've experienced, kind of like not having a home in mid-August? Because it feels like it might be a little frustrating, or you have a lot of time on your hands, I guess, now.
Yeah, for sure. It is really weird. I was talking to my wife about that the other day. Actually, I was just like, we were sitting here and it was 5 o'clock, and I was like, dang, I'm like bored. Like I've gotten everything done that I need to do for the day. Like I can only read so many books or do so much like extra stuff. And so yeah, there's that weird aspect of kind of feeling left out too. Like, and it is frustrating for me as well. I feel like I have pretty good stuff, and I think I did struggle a little bit with command this year. Which kind of hasn't been the case for me in my entire career. Like over the last couple of years, I would say it's gone down. And I think a lot of that is that like searching aspect. So there is reasons for me to look at and be like, okay, like Like it is on me. Like it's not just like a bad luck thing. Like I just didn't pitch well enough, at the end of the day. And like being hurt didn't help. And I tried to throw through some injury from like May on. And there's a pretty distinct like drop off in my numbers. Like all of April, I was lights out. And then half of May, I was really good. And then I had like a flexor strain that I kind of kept on the down low, trying to just pitch through it and like hope it would go away. And as you see, like from about mid May on, you can see my numbers just really trend down. And that's one of those learning curves for me too, where like it's okay if I am not feeling 100% to go like get some help from the trainers instead of trying to work through it myself. So that's been a learning curve too. But yeah, it's definitely a little frustrating. Kind of being here and watching games on TV, instead of having a place to go play. But at the end of the day, when life gives you lemons, you make lemonade. So I'm trying to make the best of it and sharpen my craft a little bit so I can be ready if somebody needs me quick, or if I just take this in as an extra 2 weeks of training for the off season and get ready for next year. Just really trying to stay positive has been huge for me, because I think in times like these, it's easy to get negative and easy to get kind of bitter, and I don't really want that to leak into my everyday life.
Yeah, without a doubt, and sneaking in a lemonade metaphor there too. So nice. Are you throwing every day? Is that something that like what's your routine now? Is it throwing every day? Maybe taking a day off in a 7 day week? What is kind of the routine right now?
So I've been throwing and working out every day except Sunday. Sunday's kind of just like a off day, I guess. And that kind of lines up with the minor league schedule anyway. We had one off day a week. So Sunday's kind of like my day for me and my wife. We go to church and hang out with our friends and kind of do whatever. But the other days, yeah, I'm throwing, working out, trying to throw like two bullpens a week just to stay fresh, like keep them higher intensity. I think I got one on Thursday this week, and then I'll have two next week on Monday and Friday. But yeah, just trying to stay as sharp as possible. I know there's kind of like no guarantee if I'm going to get a job this year, but at worst case, like I'd rather be ready than not. Kind of similar to that whole COVID situation where we didn't really know what was going on. I'm kind of treating it like that. I don't know if I'll get a call or not, but if I do, I'll be ready.
Mhm. Yeah, and the thing I hear most about guys that are kind of in your spot, either a free agent or have been a free agent in the past, that maybe don't have the resources, is that they're so blessed when they go to a place like Driveline and they have a catcher. Like that's what I hear so much, is like everybody's trying to track down a catcher. So let's hop into your career a little bit. You're a Michigan guy. When did you first start playing baseball, and how did that kind of become a passion for you?
Oh gosh. I think I was like 10, maybe.
Mhm.
And I still give my parents kind of some crap for this, but I was that kid in like 10U baseball or 10U little league that was wearing jeans out there my first
Yeah.
year. Um,
Kind of a
and
little bit
I
later
always,
than everybody else, huh? 10?
yeah, I don't know. I don't really remember why, but I think a couple of my friends from school were like going to play. So I told my parents like, hey, I want to play. Um, Unfortunately, I was left-handed, so that's definitely been a huge blessing. And then I kind of just played growing up, and I didn't really realize it turned into a passion, I think, until like high school. I always enjoyed playing with my friends. It was just kind of something fun to do, and I was relatively good at it. Um, and I was left-handed, so like, hey, do you want to pitch? And I was like, sure. And then that kind of took off. And I was reading some stuff from Trevor Rosenthal, which was really interesting. He read the book Outliers, which I had read as well, and they talk about like the reasons everything happens, and it's more your environment than anything else. And I think I was just really blessed to be in a good community in West Michigan, where baseball is kind of like not a hotbed, but like everybody plays. So I was able to get in at a young age and just kind of fell in love with making friends that way and being able to just be outside in the summer and the weather. And it really just took off from that aspect. And honestly, I think we all have aspirations of playing baseball when we're little kids in the pros, but I didn't really take that seriously until I got to college. When I went to junior college, I just wanted to go like get my school paid for. I wanted to be an orthopedic surgeon. And I was like, well, I might as well play baseball as long as I can and maybe not have some student loans. And then I started lifting weights my first year in college and gained some velo and had some attention from some pro scouts. And I was like, oh, maybe this isn't such a crazy dream. Like maybe being a doctor can be my like fallback, and baseball can be my like number one. So that's kind of how it all happened.
Yeah, still time to be a doctor. And one of my favorite things, you mentioned this kind of, to promote on this podcast is playing JUCO baseball, right? And you took
Hmm.
that path and you played at Jackson Community College in Michigan before transferring to Indiana University, Bloomington. And why was that the right path for you? Because I know it's different for everybody, and not everybody has to commit to a D1 or a D2. And JUCO baseball, as far as I'm concerned, what I've seen, here in the Bay Area in California, like it's kind of a gritty style of play. Like those kids are hungry to play. And what was it about the JUCO path that made sense for you?
I didn't have any D1 offers. I didn't even have any D2 offers, to be honest. I had some JUCO offers, some NAIA offers, and some D3 offers, and I never really, I guess, trained for baseball. Like I had a pitching coach when I was little, but I say maybe like 12, and I went to him for like 2 years. Rick Kruger, I think he actually played for the Red Sox for a couple of years. Um, but for me going to JUCO, like I was a little undersized. I wasn't like short by any means. I think I was 6 foot at the time when I left high school, but I was about 165. So I was just really skinny, and I didn't throw very hard. Like I threw like 83, 84 from the left side. So like that obviously wasn't hard enough to go D1 or anything. And for me, JUCO was just a way to take a stepping stone to get to a bigger school, and it
Mhm.
turned out to be really the best thing ever. I met one of my better friends there who ended up getting drafted by the Cardinals my freshman year there. And he kind of took me under his wing and showed me the weight room for the first time and really got me like lifting weights. And that's where I saw like my biggest jumps. And I also grew like 3 inches my freshman year. So I ended up leaving my junior college at like 6'3", 200 pounds. So in that 2 year time, I put on 35 pounds of weight plus 3 inches, and I started throwing harder. That was the first time I started throwing 90, and that's what got me noticed to the bigger school. But it definitely is a grindier experience at JUCO, and I kind of like that. You're not as spoiled. And I remember my coaches at Indiana making that comment too. They're like, "Hey, we kind of do like JUCO guys because you don't care about the nice facilities. Like you get to play, you just want to play." Like that's really how I feel. Like I really just love playing baseball and going out there and competing.
Yeah, every time I go and see like a 4-year school, like some of the ones that take the JUCO guys, like it's obvious to tell which ones are the JUCO guys. So for anybody out there, it's definitely a path if you're a young player, because you're gonna play. Go where you're gonna play. That's like the most
Yeah, and it's a lot cheaper too. It's a lot
cheaper.
cheaper.
Yes. Yeah. So you could save some money trying to be a doctor. So hopefully
Yeah, for sure.
um ninth rounder in 2016 by the Giants. And I always ask for draft stories. Yours might have been as simple as a call. So how did you kind of find out about that selection? Were the Giants like talking to you for an extended period of time? Did you know they were one of the teams? How did that kind of go?
So I didn't. I'd filled out, I think, a questionnaire for almost every team. I think every team except for Houston, to be honest. So I didn't really know where I was going to go or who was going to take me. I actually got some calls from the Dodgers like 30 minutes before telling me they were going to take me in the ninth round. I think they had a couple of picks behind, so I really thought I was going to LA. And then my agent texted me and was like, "Hey, like, just got off the phone with the Giants. Like, turn your TV on." And so me and my mom were downstairs watching. I was like, "Hey, come here." And then I got to see like my name pop up on the screen. So that was just pretty cool. And then obviously, my agent called me and we like celebrated afterwards. But not a crazy story, but I definitely didn't expect to go to the Giants. But I was super blessed to get that opportunity for sure.
Yeah, 100%. And you mentioned earlier that, you came up as a starting pitcher and your roots are kind of originated in starting pitching. And, eventually when you came up to the big leagues, it was solely in a relief role. Did you have a tough time giving up starting, or did you kind of identify I guess the perks of the new role right away?
That's funny because I still feel like I have a hard time giving that up. Like I still miss
Yeah.
starting for sure. I don't know. I think starting was easier, to be honest. Like, yeah, you got to face the lineup a couple of times, and obviously, I've never started in the big league, so I can't speak on that at all. And that's not by any means saying that I think starting pitching is easy because I don't. I just think the routines that you get as a starter are so solidified, and I'm a very routine oriented guy, so I really miss that part. But don't get me wrong, like I feel like I made a good adjustment in 2020 to being a reliever, and I really leaned on some of the older guys in the bullpen for that. But yeah, it's still hard for me to give that up. I just really do miss starting. I miss having that day to yourself, and I miss being able to pitch like multiple innings and kind of compete against the same guy a couple times in the same day, as opposed to just going out there and like throwing as hard as you can for one inning and trying to just throw your best stuff all the time. Like I miss the pitching aspect for sure.
Yeah, very routine oriented. And you're wrong. You have started in the big leagues before.
Well,
That's like
it was an open,
you're
but
an
I
opener,
yeah.
yeah. So, and that takes me into my next question about the opener. So, you had the chance to be the opener in 2020. Uh, was that a bit strange? Because like it's still, I mean, now it's kind of a commodity. Teams use it like once or twice through the order. If you're the Giants, they use it. They only have two starters traditionally, and they use it like the opener every other time. Um, was it like strange because it was still kind of new to a lot of guys, like warming up, throwing an inning, and then having to sit down? Like, was it weird doing that preparation?
Well, it was really weird because Cap and Bales texted me like the night before when I was about to leave, and they were like, "Hey, come to the office." And I was like, "All right, what's going on?" They're like, "Hey, you're going to open tomorrow. Is that okay?" I was like, "Yeah, it's great." I was like, "Can I do my whole starter routine? Like, can I play long toss on the field before?" They're like, "No, no, you have to do everything the same way. Like, warm up in the bullpen, like play catch at 2 o'clock before the game, like normal." And I was like, "Okay, fine. Like, I get it. We don't want to change anything." And then I remember I'll never forget like warming up on the mound and like turning around and looking at the scoreboard and it says like Caleb Baragar first major league start. And in my head, I'm like, this isn't my first start. Like I'm only going to pitch an inning here or maybe an inning and a third. Like I wouldn't count this as a start. So just like that was pretty funny. But it was kind of weird. And then I got done and I sat in the locker room for 8 innings and I was just like, man, like this is really boring. Like I missed like I feel like the whole game's still going on. Like it was a really weird experience, but obviously it was kind of cool. But I don't know. I wish I could have pitched like 7 innings that day for sure.
Yeah, you wanted the start. You wanted the bullpen session before and the long toss before, and
Right, yeah.
yeah, it's funny because the way the guys do it now is that they come straight in from the bullpen in the
Yeah, that's
bottom of
how I
the
did it
first
too.
inning, and yeah,
Yeah.
it's very strange look, but somehow it gets done. I mean, and I do want to ask another change that's been happening, and you experience this in the minor leagues is the automated balls and strikes
Oh
zone.
gosh.
Uh, why the oh god? Because I know that there's people that are fans of it and people that aren't. In my opinion, that nobody cares about is I think it completely devalues the catcher and the catcher's defensive skill set. But is it like I don't know, just explain the automated strike zone and what you think about it.
So I've been fortunate enough to get it for 2 years now. I had it last year in the PCL when I was with Reno. And then I've had it this year in Columbus. And what's been really interesting to me is how different the zones have been. Last year the zone was huge. It was absolutely massive. It was too big. They were given like an inch on each side plus like up and down was really big. And then this year it's almost like completely done a 180. Like this year the zone is really tight. Um, and then I selfishly for me, like I'm as we talked about earlier, I'm a pitcher who pitches at the top of the zone, and they completely like chopped off the top of the zone. So that was like a really big adjustment for me, and I struggled with that pretty much up until like the end of June when I was finally like, all right, I'm going to start throwing my fastball down in the zone again, just because I have to throw strikes at this point. Like I know that's not where my fastball plays, but I don't know. I don't think it's great in the aspect of the game because it takes away that like you said, it takes away the catcher skills. Like there's no point in a guy being good at framing, you know, if if it doesn't matter how he catches it and it's a robot calling balls and strikes, then you could literally put anybody back there with a decent arm and they'd probably have a good chance to throw guys out as opposed to normal stuff. Like the challenge system is better. I don't mind the challenge system. I just really think it needs to be done correctly if MLB does it. Like, obviously, I don't think they're going to listen to my opinion. They sent out like a questionnaire in maybe the beginning of June, and I wrote them probably like a 10-page essay about what I think needs to get changed and everything. I'm sure they won't read it. Uh, it is what it is, but it needs to be a little bit more fundamentally sound than it was this year. They were taking it off heights and they were doing a percentage of guys' heights, which is okay in theory, but if you think about it, everybody's legs are different lengths and everybody's torsos are different lengths. So if you take two guys that are 6 feet tall, like their strike zones are going to be different based on just the word of the law of baseball of like I think it's the middle of the knee to some guys say the letters. Obviously it's not the letters. I wish it was the letters, but letters are not the top. It might be the belly button or like top of the belt. I don't know. But we were seeing guys get like balls at the belt this year that were called balls on the automated strike zone, which was just like really interesting for me as a pitcher. And even some that were like kind of below the belt that were still balls. So I don't know about the east and west part. I think the east and west part can be on the edge of the plate. That's fine. But I think hopping down, if they really want to do it correctly, it needs to be like specifically measured to each hitter. And I don't, there were always, everybody was always talking about this year that like the zones would change Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday as well. Like maybe the MLB was experimenting with things like that's just another one of those things where you're in the minors and everybody's trying to like find their own conspiracy theory or whatever. But I'm not a huge fan of it. I hope it doesn't come to the game, but I have a feeling it probably will at some aspect. And if it does, I just hope that they really take the time to get the zone right. Like obviously pitchers and hitters are never going to agree on it, but if we can get some common ground to make it fair, like nobody wants to throw into a shoebox. And at the end of the day too, like fans don't want to come to the game and see 15 walks a game. Like that's not part either, especially if we're trying to make the games go quicker, which I think the pitch clock has done a great job with. But there's definitely been longer games since we've gotten the new ABS in the minor leagues versus before in the year we were playing like 2 hour games. Then all of a sudden we'd have some games that were like 3.5 hours. We're like, well, what's going on? But the zone's just a little tight. So
Yeah,
it is what it is.
that would be funny if like on the Saturday afternoon games in Reno, Major League Baseball's like, we want offense today. There's going to be people showing up. Let's completely shorten the strike zone a little bit. But that's interesting. I've never heard how like inconsistent it actually is. But I don't know if you see the report cards on Twitter of the umpires, and like a lot of them are in like the 90s, like mid 90s, high 90s, and percentage wise. And every few days we see the calls that are pretty bad from umpires behind the plate, but that's like one out of 500, 600 pitches per series, so they're not bad.
Right. And I think that goes to like the news nowadays too, right? You only see the bad stuff and
Yeah.
that's kind of just the way things are. Like everybody wants to focus on the like egregious things. But I agree with you. I've seen a lot of those umpire cards too, and most of them are pretty good. And I
Mhm.
think a lot of that just goes overlooked because the bad stuff is what catches everybody's attention. It's easier to talk about the bad stuff. Like nobody wants to be like, oh, this guy he missed 2 calls today. Like it didn't affect the game. Whereas a lot of people would be like, well, this guy missed 15 calls and that really did affect the game. So I think that's just the nature of humans, not to get kind of deep there, but I think that's just kind of the way we are. We fixate on those anomalies and definitely the more negative outliers. So I think that's why it's important for us to kind of shift our focus to being a little more in check with what actual reality is. But that's a great point, and I think more people
Mm.
need to look at that. Like the big league umpires are pretty good. That's why they're there.
Yeah,
They have a
yeah,
job in that league because they're pretty good. So like, let's let them do their job and let them do their job well.
yeah, without a doubt. And I think it's funny because when somebody I talked to, because I was blown away by the fact when I got older and out of high school baseball, and I realized that pro ball players call the umpires by their first name and not blue. So that was something I was like, really? Like they don't call. So umpires don't like
No, it's
that.
just a
They
respect thing for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. But that's a good segue. You mentioned the bad news. Let's talk about the good news here for once.
Sure.
You had the chance to make your debut at Dodger Stadium in 2020. There was nobody there for it. But what feelings were kind of circling through your mind on that day, and what do you remember from facing that Dodger lineup? Because I went back and looked at video, Caleb, and there's some menaces in that lineup that you faced.
Yeah, it's really funny. Like this gets brought up a decent amount by people. They're like, "Oh, how'd you deal with like facing those guys?" And I always go back to the exhibition game I played against the A's, like a couple days before, because that was my real first encounter with any big league hitters outside of like our own team. Because I didn't go to big league camp at all before, and I didn't even go to big league camp at the start of 2020. So I never got to like face those guys. And I remember pitching in Oakland and being like, "Oh, I got to face Chapman and then Olson and Chris Davis," and I was like pretty nervous. Obviously, like it's my first time pitching against those guys. And I remember I like walked Chapman got up 2 strikes on Olson and threw like a curveball that I was supposed to bounce. I didn't bounce it, and he hit like it should have been like a bloop single, but we were playing 4 outfielders, so it kind of trickled into the middle. So we ended up getting a double. So I had second and third with nobody out, and I was like, dang, like I didn't give up a home run to either of those guys, and I probably should have got both of them out. And then I got Chris Davis to like pop up run scored, and I don't remember what I did to the next 2 guys, but I ended up getting out of it with 1 run. And I got done with that game, and I was like, huh, like those were some of the best hitters in baseball, and I didn't really have to like overthink it. And so I was like, well, I guess for the rest of the year, I'm just not going to worry about who the hitters are, and I'll just let the chips fall where they are. Like maybe I am like good enough to pitch up here. You know, I haven't had a lot of experience, but maybe I am really good enough to pitch up here. And so I remember taking that into Dodger Stadium, and I almost didn't have enough adrenaline for my first big league outing. You know, I had a lot of adrenaline that day in Oakland, and then I tried to just be as calm as I could. Like I wasn't really. I was trying to just not focus on who the hitter was. I was trying to focus like, hey, it's just a right-handed hitter, or hey, it's just a left-handed hitter, and just go from there. And I think that really helped me because I ended up looking after the game, and I was like, oh, that was like Max Muncy, Mookie Betts, Justin Turner, Kyle Seager, and I don't remember who the fourth guy was. But I guess it's not important. But I don't know. For me, it was kind of just separating the players from the name, if that makes sense, and just kind of realized that day, like nobody's Superman, like everybody's just a human. You know, everybody's kind of the same. And I've tried to pass that information along to some of the younger guys. I passed it to 2 of the guys in Cleveland before they made their debuts this year when they were getting called up from AAA. I was like, hey, like it doesn't matter who you're facing. Like I know you're going to know their name, but it doesn't mean they're much better than the guys you've been facing your whole career. Like if your stuff's good enough to get called up, like your stuff's good enough to pitch against these guys. So like try not to overthink it and try not to psych yourself out with you're facing whoever today. Like they're going to probably get out. That's just the nature of baseball. They're probably going to get out.
Yeah, and nobody's Superman, you're right, except your cat, who's literally like Tarzan in the background.
Yeah, I know. He got locked in this room with me. My wife's out there doing some work. So yeah.
No, it's entertaining. So the pandemic, you know, it was weird to make your debut with nobody there. But was it a trip coming back and you know, AAA has crowds. The minor leagues have crowds when you're coming up. But was it a trip coming back in 2021 and like, whoa, people are in the stands, it's not the cardboard cutouts.
Yeah, it was. I remember because I pitched that first game in Seattle in our opener, and I remember coming in, and it was like a super low leverage situation. I think there was nobody on, and I couldn't believe how loud it was. I was like, dang, like it's really loud in here today. And I like walked the first guy, and then I think I struck out the next guy, but I was like, damn, like I shouldn't have walked that guy. But I remember like getting to the dugout, and Bailey's like, you all right? I was like, yeah. He's like, a little bit of butterflies today. I was like, oh yeah. Like it was definitely a whole different animal, you know, especially it being my first time with some fans in the stands. But I couldn't believe how loud it was, and that was such a cool stadium to play at Safeco. But or I guess it's T-Mobile. No, not Safeco. But yeah, it
I
was
still call it Safeco.
definitely
Yeah.
different.
Yeah. Still Safeco to me. Why like what did you like about playing in San Francisco for the Giants? What did you like about that organization coming up through the system? What are some takeaways about being in the orange and black?
Everything was pretty good. Everything was really good. The communication from the front office, I will give them so much credit. Like after going through a couple different places, like their communication was incredible. I always felt like I knew where I stood, and I probably should have listened a little bit more. You know, I think that's one of my bigger regrets is kind of like I should have listened a little bit more and kind of trusted everything that I heard and not kind of tried to guess some stuff. Like especially at the end of 2021 when I was going up and down and like struggling at AAA. Um, the care and support staff they have is top notch for sure. The food was incredible. The food that's probably some of the best food to this day that I've still eaten in my life. Like our chefs there were awesome. The clubhouse staff was great. It just really felt like a family, you know. Um, Everybody's just pretty tightly knit, and that was always awesome. And then obviously the ballpark is beautiful. I love pitching that ballpark. And then I think my favorite thing though is definitely the fan base. Like the fans were just absolutely incredible, and just the support that they really have for that team is really cool. Um, and I even noticed it the other day. Like I didn't expect when I put that stuff on Twitter. Like I didn't expect to get some like fans commenting on it, but I was like, dang, like I haven't been with you guys for over 2 years and y'all are still around. Like that's pretty cool to see. So just that aspect, like that'll have such a big impact on my life probably forever. So just getting to play in front of those fans and getting to interact with them over the like short 2 years that I was there was really, really special to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And a few more here before we wrap up, but I do want to kind of follow up on the ballpark question because you said you like pitching here, and I know Michigan kind of has the temperature, like the cold winters, maybe cold springs. Did you mind like pitching in cold weather, or were you kind of used to it? Or is
I
because
love it.
personally, I don't think San Francisco is like it's cold, but I don't think it's as cold as people think, right? In especially in the summer, the day games like when you're at 68, 69, 70 degrees, like it's not terrible. So,
No, I love the weather there. And I really did enjoy pitching early in the year there because it was so cold. I kind of like pitching in the cold better. I think hitters are a little more tentative and a little less aggressive. So I think the advantage is definitely for pitchers. And I don't know, there's just something about being able to see your breath while you're on the mound is kind of cool too, you know.
mhm.
But the weather there is top notch, and it's kind of interesting. Like you said, like the day games, the weather's really nice. You know, everybody's always like no undershirt, feeling good, and then it's amazing to me how much it does switch. Like I would remember playing catch pregame at like 2 o'clock and being like, "Oh, the weather's nice today," and then walking out to the bullpen at night, like turning around, being like, "I'm gonna get my jacket because it's a little
Mhm.
bit chillier." You know, it is really just a unique city, and I think that aspect as well.
Is it true they have space heaters in the bullpen?
No comment.
Yeah,
No,
fair.
they do,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if that was like an advantage, like to not like disclose that, but the other team's bullpen has it too, so I guess it's fair game. Um,
Yeah, everybody's got some. I remember we were talking about trying to get some like umbrellas with heaters. We were at dinner one night, me and a couple of the guys, and we saw this like umbrella contraction with like some space heaters built in. And we're like, dang, that'd be really cool for the bullpen, like especially if it ever rains.
yeah,
So
absolutely. And Gabe Kapler, I want to ask about him because he's kind of got an intriguing personality. I know I've learned a good deal of baseball from him, but he's just got a way of like explaining things very particular. What was it like kind of playing for him?
it was really cool. I really like Gabe. Um, I think I think sometimes he is smarter than people think. Like I think he's a very very intelligent human, and everything's pretty calculated. So I would always try to listen to what he said, you know, and try to see what I could take away. And I don't know. I think he's got a pretty good lock on everything there, and he's probably the most dialed in human with his body that I've ever met, which is really impressive. Like I try to know my body really well, but I think I'm a 50th of the way that he is. So any knowledge that I could kind of soak up, I probably wish I would have soaked up a little bit more um, from my time there. But I've always been really intrigued when he speaks.
Absolutely. And before we wrap up, I have a few rapid fire before we go. I'm going to take this from
Sure.
intentional talk or whoever, and this doesn't have to be rapid fire. You can answer them however you want. Uh, there's five of them. Number one, if you weren't a baseball player, and I think I might know the answer because you might have said it before, what would you be?
Orthopedic surgeon.
Orthopedic surgeon. Okay. Favorite movie of all time?
Ooh. Um, Batman: The Dark Knight. The second one.
Nice. Nice. And your cat could star in that movie, the next one.
Yeah, for
Uh,
sure.
Number three, you're sitting in the electric chair. What's your final meal?
Oh God, I don't know. The smart ass in me wants to say like, oh, you can eat sushi, so I just can keep going. Definitely some type of sushi. I don't know where from, but sushi for sure,
Yeah.
for
All
sure
you could
sushi.
that's a good strategy of like, them not, doing it is all you could eat. Just keep
Yeah,
filling
I would
yourself
just have
up.
to eat forever. I guess it'd be a really boring life, but
Yeah,
I don't know.
absolutely. Number four, where is Shohei Ohtani going next?
I don't know. I have no idea. I'm sure everybody in San Francisco wants him to go there. That'd be cool if he went there. I know all those guys are pretty excited if that happens. So hopefully, let's say hopefully there, but I have a feeling it's probably going to be the highest bidder. So maybe
Mhm.
LA or New York.
I'll
I
switch the
don't know. That's
question.
such an
Yeah,
interesting.
I'll switch the question. Name one word to describe Shohei Ohtani. It's probably impossible. Probably an even worse question, but just go with it.
Incredible.
Yeah.
And I think that term is probably overused nowadays, but like he's probably the definition of that word, to be honest.
Hmm.
Just incredible.
Yeah. Well, you should market yourself. You're a free agent now. Market yourself as being able to play like first base too, and see how it
I
goes.
played first base in high school and a little bit my freshman year of fall ball in college, but I definitely can't hit. So I'll tell you
Yeah.
that much. I can't hit like that.
You have like two RBIs though, I think, in pro ball, if I'm not mistaken, or an RBI, one
Yeah,
RB.
I think I do in the minors. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I have two at bats in the big leagues and they didn't let me swing at either of them.
Oh, that's too
So I
bad.
know. That's all
Um,
right.
Final one here. Your message to all 30 MLB organizations about your current free agency and what you want them to know about how you're feeling.
Oh, that's a good one. I'm feeling great. I'm healthy. Making some good changes at Driveline, and I'm ready to go if anybody needs me.
Perfect. Caleb, man, I really appreciate you coming on the show. I know I kept you for a little longer, but it was a great chat. And hope to see you in professional baseball and even better in the big leagues pretty soon.
Thanks, Stephen. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
And everybody could go ahead and follow Caleb on. Oh, one thing, this is what I wanted to know too. What is the most like common mispronunciation of your name? Because it's Baragar, right?
It's Baragar, correct. Yeah. Probably Baragar. I feel like it's honestly gotten better. Everybody's pretty good at it now, which has been nice. But oh my gosh, coming up through the minor leagues, it was a different one every day. It was pretty
Yeah.
funny. It was a different one every day.
Good to know that I don't have to redo the intro. So we'll keep that. But go follow him on Twitter at Caleb_Baragar. He's even got the pronunciation in his bio, so go check that out. And you can check out all the TrackMan stuff too. So if you're a big league team out there, go check that out, especially. And everybody can follow the podcast on Instagram and Twitter at RizzoCast. More stuff coming soon. Thank everybody for listening, and have a good day.